This is a Lucky 44 tutorial for Arma 2 on how to use player-controlled radio to fire triggers. The key to understanding the radio controls is that they are used in triggers to give the player control over events. So many things can be linked into the trigger, and using the radio control lets the player say when this is going to happen. That's the essence, that basically they are triggers. So I've already got set up a Humvee here with a waypoint right in front of it and a waypoint down by the rifleman player. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select triggers over here on the right. I'm going to click one onto the board. I'm going to make the axis 0 on both sides because the size of the trigger doesn't matter at all. In fact, it should have no range because it doesn't have anything to do with being on the map. What matters is how it's activated. And I'm going to set that up to be called by radio alpha, which means it'll be the number 1 on the radio. I'll explain that later if that's confusing. The only other thing that's important is the text that I put in it. And I'm going to say call Humvee to me. And that's what's going to be displayed, the call Humvee to me, in my radio dialog box in-game. I'm not going to put anything in condition or in on activation. The next simple thing I have to do is synchronize. So I go over to synchronize on the right, or hit F5. I drag from the trigger to the very first waypoint. And what that means is that the Humvee will spawn and it will sit at that first waypoint and wait for the conditions of the trigger to be true. And in this case that means it's not going to move until it gets a radio call from the players. So let's go in game and look at that. Okay, there's my Humvee, and he's just sitting at that first waypoint. To bring up the radio, I hit 0, which brings up a variety of options, but you'll see the 0 option within that is radio. So I bring up radio, and the only option that's set up for this scenario is call Humvee to me, the one that I put, and that text is what I put in the text box of the trigger. So it's linked to alpha, which is number 1, so I hit number 1 on my keyboard, and that fires the script. And lo and behold, in a second, the Humvee will start to move, and he'll proceed along his waypoint route from there, which will bring him to me. And that's all there is to the basics of running a radio control through a trigger.